Hi, everyone. Welcome to Delta 20. Thank you for joining us for the program highlight for Bose. My name is Tom Palin, and I'm a product director here at Centercode. And today we'll be speaking with Jenna Deutsch, who is a senior program manager for Bose and responsible for customer validation testing. Welcome, Jenna. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hanging in there. Everything's nice and sunny on my side. Hope everything's the same for you.
It's okay today. It snowed 2 days ago, but this is better.
There you go. So we obviously want to get to know you and about what you're doing at Bose and how things are working out for your team and obviously for customer validation in general. But to start, could you perhaps give us a quick introduction, maybe what your background is? Give us a few words.
Definitely. So I grew up in New Jersey, and then I went to school in Rochester, New York at RIT. I studied advertising and PR. Kind of a weird school to do that at since it's a tech school, but I loved every second of it. The school is super weird. And after graduation, I moved to Boston to work at an ad agency. I was a program manager responsible for helping to create mostly online ads for Fiat Chrysler automobiles, a lot of trucks and cars. After doing that for about 2.5 years, I decided I needed a change and wanted to go work in the health and fitness. I am a runner and just really into health and fitness. So I left Sapient, the advertising agency, and went to Fitbit to be a program manager on their field testing team. I was there for about 2 years, and then I made the switch to Bose, also as a program manager on their customer validation team. So similar jobs, just different things that we're working with. When I'm not making headphones and speakers sound really good, I like to run, work out, travel, bake, and find puppies to pet on the street.
Well, the last one I can definitely agree with you on. Any puppies I see, I'll probably pet too. That's awesome. Thank you. So currently at Bose, what are you doing? What's your day to day? What are your responsibilities like?
Well, right now it's a bit different because everyone's working from home and trying to learn how to do that. But in the normal day to day, I'd say most of my day is spent working with stakeholders to see what new products and features are, ready to test right now, so we can have our testers test them with, weekly activities and surveys. So I'd say it's a lot of emails.
Okay. When you got started with the program itself, I guess the beta testing program, your customer validation program, what was the start of that like? Was there some kind of realization that happened? And who was involved typically from your side that was involved in this decision?
So from what I understand, the program existed already when I came onto the team at Bose. It just had a different name and there wasn't a ton of structure to it. Bose knew that testing like this was important, but there just wasn't a dedicated team for it. So I was brought on to continue growing the team. A lot of work that I did at Fitbit was creating a process and templates and a bunch of different artifacts to use to help each test be run the same way between program managers and tests. So that was kind of the work that we wanted to do at Bose. So I was lucky because I didn't have to, persuade someone that this needed to happen. Bose already knew there was a need for it. But a lot of the work that I've been doing, my team have been doing, is working on making tests run the same way between tests and program managers.
So what kind of challenges were you having at the beginning then? Because you said it started with a different name, and then you started to migrate over. What were some of the initial hurdles you had?
I'd say the biggest one is people thought our team did one thing that it may have done in the past, and then we were working hard to kind of rebrand ourselves and say, you know, we're not SQA. We want to be the last, you know, people that this product or feature runs through before it hits the shelves or updates sent to your product. So while SQA and things like that are important, that's not what we're doing. So I think it's just a lot of rebranding and getting people to change their mindset on what we're here for.
So that stakeholder alignment must have been pretty difficult, though. And I'm sure that could be a continued issue throughout the testing process. So it sounds like you were able to align everybody, and hopefully they have a better understanding of what it is that you guys are doing now.
Yeah, we have a ton of stakeholders, which is great because that means we have a ton of, you know, subject matter experts, but at times it's hard to wrangle them all. So that's definitely a challenge that we have here, and I feel like many people have, because not one person knows everything about the product or how it's supposed to work. So we need to work with a ton of different people. It is difficult that we have, you know, offices in Framingham, I'm in Boston, we have people in San Francisco and Atlanta. So that whole communication is hard. Yeah, but it's something that we're definitely getting better with, and I think everyone working from home right now is gonna get a lot better at it.
Yeah, it's the great experiment, right?
Yeah.
So, how many people do you have currently on your team with that is responsible for customer validation?
So on my team, we have my boss, Gene. We all kind of, you know, fall under him. And then there are 3 program managers and 2 coordinators. And then we've been lucky enough to have someone in Bose's rotation program come in and help us for the past 6 months or so. So 6.5 people. I say the half because we don't get to keep Brenda forever. But yeah, it's a pretty small team for the amount of projects that we want to be working on.
So does everybody kind of do a myriad of things, or is there specific responsibilities that each person has?
Yeah, we try and match for each program a program manager with a coordinator. The coordinator is more in charge of handling bugs and triaging, while the program managers can focus on managing expectations with the stakeholders and getting activities and surveys out to the testers. But you know, we don't have enough people for that to always happen, or
Sure.
you know, isn't big enough that we think we need both people in there. So I've run some tests where it's just me, and that's manageable. But then, you know, the bigger tests that we have for the more complex products, we definitely need the 2 people.
Got it. And obviously, there's going to be some shared skills and abilities that you all have. I guess across the 6.5 people you talked about, what's a shared skill or attribute that everybody seems to possess?
I'd say we're all pretty organized for the most part. I'm a little on the OCD end. That's my love language, so I think I'm on the more intense side of that. But I think
Sure.
everyone is pretty organized, and you know, if I ask someone to do something, I know they're gonna do it and get me what I need.
Oh, that's really important. Yeah, I can see that, especially if you're the only one running a project and you need some help somewhere else. You need to be able to count on those people. Um, so when you're kicking off a program and things have gotten started, what does a day-to-day typically look like for you or other members of your team?
I'd say the important parts when we go to start a program are, is this actually ready to be tested? You know, has it gone through SQA? Are there any critical bugs open? Is it actually usable? So we don't just want to throw things at 50 to 100 people and say use it if we're just going to get a ton of issues back. So that's one kind of gate that we have to get through. I'd say after that, we spend a decent amount of time working with the product owner on what do we actually want tested. So what are the biggest user-facing features of this product? You know, for a sound bar, we want to make sure it works with your TV, with Netflix, also with our app, with Spotify, Pandora, Bluetooth, all of those things, and start writing down all of those different topics and tasks to kind of figure out how long this test needs to run for, how many people we need, things like that. So I'd say a decent amount of time is making sure we've recorded all of the user-facing features that we want to get tested.
Great. Yeah, I mean the planning stage is extremely pivotal in the success of your project. So I'm glad to hear that that's working out for you guys, and putting a lot of time and effort into planning is so important.
Yeah, we know things will come up, and there may be things that SQA needs some help on, but I'd say we try and get like 80% of that done in the beginning, and it gives us a good place to move forward for our testing.
Awesome. So what kind of tests are you currently running? What's your team experiencing?
I don't think I can tell you that.
Well, I mean, more so along the lines of the types of or the natures of tests, not necessarily the products themselves. Sorry, I wasn't clear.
No worries. We do most of our tests with our employees, which is great because these people are, inherently really invested and care about the future of the product and how well it turns out. On the other hand, these people also know how to break products and then fix them themselves in their own little ways. So while it is great that we test with employees, we do see some things that we're like, can you please just stay in our lane and do what we ask you to do? We also run some external tests with the help of Centercode, using people who are not Bose employees. So that's a great way to, get new takes on products and features from those who are not living it 9 to 5 every day.
Right. Okay. Your community, let's talk about that for a little bit. I'm curious how that's worked out for Bose. We were just talking about employees and non-employees, but who's typically comprising your tester pool right now? What kind of people are they?
So we have two communities. We have the employees, and then we have the non-Bose employees. For employees, we encourage everyone to sign up, whether they're engineers or in HR or in marketing. We want the gamut of testers. Again, we have people working our office in Framingham, and then some like in Boston, San Francisco, and Atlanta. So it's good that we get people in the suburbs and in the city. We don't really know who our employees signing up for testing unless they are, contractors. Then we just don't allow them to test. I think the same is for our external community. We'd rather have a whole ton of people that we can kind of pare down for whatever we need testing, versus just recruiting a single type of person.
Okay. And where did you find these testers, the external testers?
We have used Centercode to help us find those people.
That's a good answer. No, it's fine. We sometimes you might have customer lists or other things that you're able to bring people in on, and maybe some power users you're familiar with. But I'm glad we were able to help you out with that.
I definitely have dreams of whenever you go and you buy a product in the store and you set it up in the app, that you can check a box that says I want to be included in these things, or have marketing send out emails for us and use social media, and my list goes on and on and on. And I work in advertising, so I feel like that my two worlds together. But for right now, we've just been utilizing Centercode for the most part, and fortunately they're able to help us grow.
It's a really interesting idea, yeah, to get people engaged in the future design of your products, especially the evangelists. It's really nice to have, and I'm sure that through Centercode you're also able to find some strangers to your product to give you an outside perspective. I mean, Bose is obviously a very familiar name, and I believe the name is synonymous with quality. So it's really difficult to find someone who maybe doesn't know your products as well. But there's probably people who you've been able to find that maybe were evangelists of other products and perhaps have changed their mind. Especially, I know me personally, and I'm not trying to go on a diatribe here, but um, one of the things that I've learned working with Centercode is that when I see our clients such as you who really care about the future of their products and listen to customer feedback, that is so much more enticing for me to want to buy your product. So it's really nice to see the work that you and your team have put forward. That's really great to hear.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, I am a part of the beta man community, and I recommend that to everyone listening if you can do cool things. But I've definitely found myself purchasing the things that I've tested versus other competitors because I know that they care about what their consumers think.
That's awesome. So last thing about your community, the testers that that you're recruiting for your tests and selecting, is there anything consistent across the board that you found that would be like good tips or best practices for finding these testers, or at least identifying them through recruitment?
I'd say we have a ton of testers who filled out a profile and then never did anything again. So I don't know if this is answering your question, but it's useful for us to go in and see, when was the last time they actually went on the Centercode, to see if they're active and proactive versus just waiting for a recruitment to come along that sounds good.
Well, that's great advice. That's really solid, actually. I think that obviously the activity from a tester is going to be really important throughout an engagement. So if you have someone that's kind of wishy-washy, you want to maybe not have them on your test. So I definitely understand. So moving on to the planning of your project and scoping out these tests, typically how does your team handle the scoping of a test itself? And is there any other teams that get involved with the scoping of the test? Like, what's that process like?
So we have set up a wiki page that my team have all current projects on, and then we were able to set up a request form. It's been super helpful in probably making sure my boss doesn't lose his mind, but having people kind of go in, fill out this form, it makes them sit down and think about the questions we're asking. What we're going to test, how many people, the demographics. Again, is this actually ready to get tested, or is this like and you are just putting in this request now? Like, we like to know those things are coming, but unless something's actually ready to get tested, we don't want to see it in this request form. So that's definitely the start. And then we, the program managers, sit down with the project owner. That's who's been filling out this form, through it, answer any open questions. We have, some other questions that aren't asked on that sheet, but we like to go through, and that's we kind of start figuring out, okay, what do we need tested and who do we need to ask about these things? So do we need to pull in the hardware lead? Do we need to pull in SQA? Do we need to pull in user research? Things like that. So it starts with the project owner. We're trying to figure out now exactly who that should be to get the most bang for our buck. But I'd say it's a lot of sitting down and actually walking through this with people. Again, especially as our team has kind of evolved over time and rebranded and all of these things, we want to make sure they know what they're getting as well as we know what they want.
So what is it that they typically want? Like, what are the objectives that you're attempting to achieve? Obviously, we all like to find issues and such, but what else is Bose typically looking for with these engagements?
We want to see ratings of, 4 or higher. We care a lot about Amazon and Best Buy reviews, so they work on a 5-star rating scale. That's kind of how we've turned our projects and testing, and we want to ask about each feature that a product has, or just the feature in general, and make sure it gets a rating of 4 or higher. Obviously 5 would be great, but if people are rating things at a 2 or 3, something wrong, and we need to figure out what it is.
Sure. So is there any stakeholder group that is, aside from obviously testing, that is really invested in your testing or your results for that matter?
Um, I want to say like everyone's invested.
Sure.
I feel like every meeting I go to, no matter how big or small it is, ATP or BTP comes up. That's what we call testing. ATP is internal, BTP is external. So, it's great to feel like there's a lot of effort going into this and other people in the company care about it. I don't know if there are like specific teams that I can think of that will help answer your question, but
Sure.
I think most people on the product team and that are actually working on the products care about what we're doing, and that's really great.
That's awesome. It's good to have people who support you through the testing process. The last thing you want to have to worry about is dealing with feedback from a tester and then dealing with someone who could be kind of an adverse stakeholder and maybe against what it is that you're attempting to achieve. So it's nice to see that you have a lot of support at Bose. With testers and them submitting feedback to you, obviously you mentioned star ratings and satisfaction. When it comes to other types of feedback, though, is there something that Bose is particularly focused on? Or again, is it more of an issue type thing, or are you looking more for like ideas to improve your product?
We're looking for all of those things. So we ask testers to provide feedback in the way of issues. So if something went wrong, ideas if something could be better. And then newly, we've started using praise, which is really great. We ask testers to submit those things whenever they come across them. Issues are really because we have some pretty complex products that are Wi-Fi enabled, and then you need to ask about your Wi-Fi, what kind of home you live in, are you using Spotify, what your Spotify login is, all of these things. So issues are really important for us just because there are a lot of different details you need to know to help troubleshoot this. And then the star ratings come into play with surveys. So we like to ask people, again, a star rating for every topic they run through. And then at the end of the survey, I always ask, what's your overall rating with this product or feature at this point in time? And hopefully over time that rating increases. If it starts to decrease, we have a problem.
So you're tracking topic ratings from week to week or test by test, is that correct?
Yeah.
And at the end of your tests, are you collecting, other satisfaction scores, maybe net promoter score, overall sat, those kinds of things?
That is something that we are working on as a team right now. We don't do it, and it's super easy, so we need to be doing it. So that is something that my team is working on at the moment.
Okay. All right. And when you're seeking feedback from these testers, obviously engagement is a huge focus for a lot of our clients. What are maybe your tips or secrets to keep testers engaged throughout a test?
I don't really love live your life testing. I think if you don't give testers some tasks to do each week, they may not use your product, and therefore you may not get what you need tested. Even if it's sending out an email that says, please make sure you use your speaker 3 times this week, I think that's better than not sending anything. So even when we do have live your life, down weeks, we still do send a survey along with it and kind of send some topic ideas for them to do on an off week. The worst thing is people who, didn't use your product one week and then forgot to do it the next week. And then over time, they just forget that they're testing because they're not actually giving them pointed and directed tasks to do. So that's something that I'd say is one of my biggest pieces of advice. Always make sure your testers have something to do, know what they're doing.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because, Bose products are supposed to be a part of your life, your day to day. And like you're talking speakers, headphones. I mean, the amount of times I've been traveling and seen people with your headphones on is, they're constantly being used. So it's interesting that, we still feel not necessarily a need, but definitely the want and desire to give them these tasks. And what are you typically looking for from them as far as tasks? Are we looking at just generally touring them through the product? Are we kind of staying away from telling them to do natural usage? How much time? Like, there's so many questions I'd love to ask you about that engagement.
It's like a fine line to draw, because you don't want to force them so much to something that's not natural, but again, you want to make sure they're actually test product.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I fall in the mid where I will say, listen to music on Bluetooth and listen to a music service provider like Spotify, and then it's up to them to kind of choose their own adventure.
Mm-hmm.
If we're testing, last year we came out with those frames. They're sunglasses with a speaker in them. They're awesome. But when we did that test, we wanted to make sure people were using them and use them for what they were made for. So I didn't just want to say, wear your sunglasses for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Had to kind of direct people and say, make a call, accept a call, listen to music, ask Siri to do something, things like that. Again, to make sure one tested is actually getting tested. Or you may end up where no one's done anything except.
Gotcha. Okay, well, let's circle back around to the stakeholders and some kind of other miscellaneous topics here. What is your best method right now? And I'm sure I know the answer of keeping your stakeholders updated throughout the course of engagement.
I'd say it's a combo between wiki and emails. Again, we have a ton of stakeholders involved in these tests, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. So it's very hard to get people in one room at the same time. So I try to save meetings for when we really need to have them. So I email out results after every survey. Issues, I talk with the project owner about how often they want to be seeing those, versus putting them in the Jira and having that deal with it. So between wiki and emails, and then just keeping all of the artifacts to their point, those are the three main tools that I utilize.
Okay. And what would be maybe some advice that you would offer up to our viewers and listeners here that would be helpful for running the customer validation program?
I'd say figure out what's for you and your team, and your stakeholders can kind of conform to that, because you're the one running these. And if you're doing too much work, it's inefficient, like that's just a big problem. I'd also say what was helpful for our team with pages for each project that's going on, a whole like structure. I UX designer doing this, as well as setting up SharePoint, or if you use Google Drive, something like that, to house all the artifacts like decks and Excel sheets and whatnot from your projects on one place instead of on your desktop or in your email.
Okay, that's great advice. Thank you. I want to hop onto the tail end of our discussion here, but I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything else that maybe you wanted to cover about your specific engagements, your framework, your methodologies. I don't know if there's anything that we missed that you would like to mention as well.
I'd say just do your best to stay organized and try and do the same thing from project to project, figure out what works and what's not working. You don't need to recreate the wheel every project. I utilize Asana, and I have a project checklist that I can just basically copy and paste for every new project and start checking things off, instead of having to take the time to think about what needs to go on my checklist, write it down, things like that. So
That's
work
great. So
smarter, not.
yeah, no, I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off. It's really great to hear about the consistency. It's something that we've worked on doing within our managed testing services. So I would assume then, if you're talking about consistency from project to project, you're typically asking some of the same questions through surveys to try to have some comparative and some things like that. Do you have any type of maybe segmentations you do with the testers, like demographic or technographic? Is there kind of any bucketing that you typically do with them?
Um, Not really. I will say when we did that Bose frames test, like we looked more for testers in the city who were going to work taking publication versus
Mm.
the people in Framingham who drive to work. But we don't segment people at the community level. I haven't been in a test yet where we've segmented them in the project level for demographic. Definitely segmented people based on, if they're using Google, Alexa, things like that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So we'll kick over to the last couple questions we have for you. Kind of more general industry questions. Where do you see the most potential in the customer validation industry now, especially since you've been involved in it?
Um, I I don't know. I feel like every company should be doing beta testing of some sort. Um, it just like boggles my mind sometimes when I look at products and I'm like, who designed this? Did they not ask anyone who would ever use this? Um, I'd say that goes especially for like clothes,
Hmm.
running shoes. I've purchased some running shoes that are terribly designed. I go on the site, everyone else has the same comments, and I'm like, what happened? Also, I know this company has beta testing, so I think it just is super important for everyone to do, whether it's just, dog fooding with your employees and finding a core group of people who are going to take this home over the weekend and give you your thoughts, or it's a whole built out program and with the help of Centercode, people don't work at your company.
Hmm. It's interesting. The whole you're kind of in a position where now that we're doing product stuff, you do notice that more so when you open up a box or something. You go, I don't know what happened here, and sometimes you're disappointed, and hopefully the product is fine. But I definitely can understand that and live it.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, if I can't figure this out, how is grandma figuring it out? Or
Yeah.
like my dad, it makes no sense.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. So, last but not least, a little bit of fun. Is there something as far as technology that you might be looking forward to maybe in the next 10 years or so? Is there something that you're excited about?
So as I mentioned before, I'm a runner and I like to work out a lot. So obviously wearables.
Hmm.
I still wear my Fitbit. I think they are the best tool out there. I'm maybe a little biased, but I'm looking forward to see how, that industry emerges. I feel like a bunch of different wearables are known for things. I just am waiting for someone to put them all together. Hopefully it's Fitbit, but wearables is definitely something I'm interested in and have been interested in for a while. Probably smart home too. Not just because I live in that world for work, but I think, this corona and everyone working from home is going to change how we work and how we spend time in our homes, and maybe not working in the office 9 to 5 every day. So I think our homes have become a more important place, and therefore trying to figure out how our home, work better for us.
Great. All right. Well, is there anything else that um, maybe we missed, or perhaps you wanted to talk about before we moved on to some questions? I mean, we're not going to do live questions. We're going to make it open for everybody else, but just wanted to make sure you had everything covered.
No, I think I'm good. I'd say the last thing is, I mentioned this before, and this is a pipe for you guys, Centercode, but I think everyone should be in the beta bound community. Again, it's really fun to test other people's products, know that you're making a difference, but also see how Centercode works or other customer validation beta programs and learn from them. There are definitely some things that I've learned from being a tester and other tests that I've brought into our testing at Bose. And also sometimes if you're a really good tester, you get to keep your product. So.
Yeah, that's always a plus. I know I've benefited from that. So that's great. Thank you for the plug. I appreciate it. No, but all joking aside, yeah, I mean, we wouldn't exist without our tester community. So the ability for others to come join us and be a part of building new products and contributing to the success of a product is a really good feeling. So that's awesome. Thank you, Jenna. I really appreciate it. So to kind of cut this off, I think that we're in a good spot here. Jenna and I are going to be available in the chat for the next 30 minutes or so, should there be any questions. And as she said, sign up for Beta Bound. We'd love to have you. And again, thank you so much, Jenna. It was a true pleasure to speak with you, and I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Have a good day.